Welcome to Parenting Successful Teens. I'm Allie Irwin, and I'm here to remind you that you are already a great mom. I know that parenting teens is hard, but it doesn't have to be this hard. Listen in, and I'll teach you how to feel confident that you can handle whatever parenthood throws at you, and even make it fun. Yes, fun. I love this phase of life, and you can too. Hello, everybody. I have an important caveat to all of those episodes that you have heard me do about mother's intuition. I stand by everything I said in those episodes because I think mother's intuition is very undervalued, and it's a resource that we would all do better to continue to grow. But I see something in like the professional advice space, whether it's therapists or coaches or Instagram influencers who've read a book, where they use the word intuition in kind of an imprecise way. And I think it's worth just spending a minute to talk about what is your intuition and what isn't. Okay? So the first thing is, I think intuition gets used in a spiritual bypassing way, which is the fancy coach term, if you don't know what that means, for skipping over the hard parts and just going straight to love and sunshine and rainbows and happiness, as opposed to, acknowledging and witnessing the hard things that people are going through. Okay, we try to skip the feelings of disappointment or rejection or grief or sadness or anger and go straight to the sunshiny parts. That's spiritual bypassing. And intuition gets used in spiritual bypassing as well, in that people will say that they have intuition that they shouldn't do something, but that intuition isn't really their, inner guidance speaking. More, it's their unconscious thoughts speaking, or old stories that they have about themselves and what they can and cannot do, or even unhealed traumas. All of those parts of us are just trying to keep us safe. And very often when we're doing something new, we're learning something new, we're meeting a new friend, we're taking on something that we're not yet sure we're not good at, or we're not sure we're going to be successful at, our brain tries to talk us out of doing those things because it perceives, the risk of rejection or failure as being really painful and something that could hurt us. And so our brain tells us stories about why we shouldn't do that thing, just in an effort to keep us safe. And because our brain knows all of our stuff, because it's an inside job, our brain knows exactly how to phrase it so that it feels like intuition. It feels like this inner knowing, like you just know it's not the right time, or you shouldn't spend the money right now, or it's not the right person, or you just have a sixth sense that, you should stay home. And then we use all the information around us. We look at all those stories in the news about someone had a hunch and they skipped the meeting, and then there was a terrible car accident that they avoided because they stayed home. Like, our brain remembers that. That's part of all the data that's inside that our brain calls up and tells us about in order to get us to do the thing that our brain thinks will make us safer. Okay? So when I say that sometimes intuition gets used as bypassing, I'm not saying that you're wrong. This literally happens to everyone. And it happens because your brain is doing its best to keep you safe. I'm just saying you have to be a little suspicious sometimes. You have to be a little bit onto yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about in this episode, just a couple of little things that will help make that easier. Okay, here's a really easy test. If it is from your inner wisdom, you will get short directives that have a verb attached. Okay? Inner wisdom oftentimes has a verb attached to it. So a couple of examples could be eat toast. Like if you have a queasy stomach and your brain is telling you some long, complicated story about how you shouldn't have eaten so many cookies, then that is not your inner wisdom. Okay, that is an old mind story, or that is a current mind story. But if you get a piece of wisdom like eat toast, if you have an upset stomach and you get that kind of wisdom, that kind of directive that makes you feel like moving, that is more likely to be inner wisdom. Okay, another couple of examples are sometimes you'll get a directive like stop, or that's enough, or get out of here. Okay, there's lots of versions of stop. That's very often inner wisdom. And like you won't know why you're getting that message, but it's definitely worth it. Gavin DeBecker wrote, created a whole career out of teaching people to listen to those intuitive messages that something is wrong and they needed to get out of a situation. Sometimes those inner wisdom messages will be things like wait or rest. Okay, when I say take action, those count as action as well. Okay, if you're futzing around and you get, if you get a feeling like now is not the time, don't do that thing, then it is worth listening to that. They can be other things like buy this book or call this friend. We've all had that situation happen where a friend will pop into our mind and we will send them a text or give them a call, and the friend will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was just thinking about you, or like I really needed to talk to a friend. Okay? Those kinds of messages come from your inner wisdom. Whereas the messages that come from your unconscious biases, old stories, or unhealed trauma, those messages usually come in story form. Okay, you get this long story like I used with the cookie example about how you're always overeating and you have no self-control. You're such a loser that you didn't stop with one cookie. Like that is not, even though it feels like maybe there's a verb in there somewhere, that long story that basically is always some version of you are not good enough, that is never your inner wisdom. It's important to start to notice the difference, because when you do, you will both strengthen your inner wisdom and you'll start to surface these old stories and these unconscious biases. And that's what gives you the opportunity to work with them and change them. We can't change those old stories and those unconscious biases until we bring them up into our consciousness. And part of the way that we do that is we notice when they come up and they're masquerading as intuitive guidance. Okay? I think this is such an important topic. I see so many people out there giving reasons that they couldn't do something, is because they got this intuitive guidance to not do it, that it wasn't the right time, and that they're just following and trusting their inner wisdom. And I am 100% for people doing that. I just want to introduce the idea of nuance, of noticing when it truly is inner wisdom and when it's an old story being told by a brain that is just trying to keep you safe. Hey, if you love this episode and you have a sneaking suspicion that you have some old stuff cluttering up your brain, some old stories that your brain is trying to tell you, trying to sneak past you. Maybe you've got some old grudges, some old hurts, some old habits that you're ready to let go of. Well, I think spring is the perfect time to spring clean that stuff right out of your brain. So many of us, when the weather starts to get warmer, we get the urge to clean out our closets or our pantries, or I don't know, not me, I wish it was me, dust the baseboards. And I think we should spend at least as much time cleaning out the stuff that's not useful in our brain as we spend cleaning up the stuff that we're ready to let go of in our home, to clear out the dust in our brain as well. So if that is of interest to you, I am running a spring special. And to get it, you just have to email me, Allie@allieirwin.com, or actually I'll leave a link in the show notes as well. Take advantage of this and start the spring fresh. I have been doing this work over the last couple of months. I've really been cleaning out some old stuff that isn't useful in my brain anymore. And I am feeling that it is so much easier without that stuff to actually be doing the habits that I want to be doing. And I want that for you too.